architecture is, as much as it's about the built, it's also about the unbuilt.
Yes.
And the spaces within this built environment or outside of it has a deeper impact on the human psyche. Unfortunately, architecture, even today, by general mass, is perceived as more in a visual object. It's a conversation, right? It's a dialogue between, spaces, material, people.
When you spend so much time in one firm, why the need to move out and start on your own?
Does it really facilitate or provide a suitable condition where you have that liberty of bringing your expression? As a practice, we are 15-year-old now, and we are also asking ourselves the same question. So there's one aspect, of course.
What is the difference between when you started and now? Apart from the awards, I'm not touching that. He'll probably want to talk about those.
How important is it for an architectural or a design firm to have a philosophy around which the design should be evolved?
A design philosophy is important for sure, because it comes through.
In today's context, how important is it to you making models at the age of AI?
And I would use AI or I would use SketchUp, everything as a tool. You cannot use them to help you visualize your design,
Right.
So that's something, a misconception which most people should get out of.
Do you see architectural practice as a medium of generating wealth?
There
or
are
any
practices.
creative field for that matter?
Creative Spark Plug is a black book of creative journeys. Here we record stories of people dealing with creativity, people dealing with creative problems, or for that matter, people having creative solutions to things or creative inclinations. How do they maneuver through things? And we record these stories so that people who are creatively inclined or are looking to have an insight into what a creative life looks like can have access to true stories. This is at the heart of why we do what we do. This is what the Creative Spark Plug stands for. Also, personally, I think both for Rajesh and I, it's a point of learning and rejuvenation in some sense of when you meet another creative professional and what they do and how they go about it. It's highly nourishing for us. So it's a complete capsule of a package, and thus the Creative Spark Plug.
Pramod, thank you so much for doing this with us. Today we're talking to Pramod Jaiswal, architect with founder of BetweenSpaces. I've known Pramod from a very long time. I just know him. I've met him a couple of times. In my lifespan of whatever years, I probably would have met him like 6 days. But we're good friends. We became good friends. We're not from the same college and not from the same batch either. He is my senior, maybe 3 years senior. I think
I graduated in 2004.
so 3 years senior. And we met in a different college on a different platform. And that's where we connected.
So I want to take over in Bangla because his Bangla is calling to me and I don't get to speak with people in Bangla.
I would love to.
তো কোথায় বড় হয়েছিলেন আপনি? Where did you grow up?
So firstly, thanks for doing this. I mean, when Rajesh called me for this podcast, I was like, yeah, more than anything, I would love to catch up,
Yeah.
And of course, তোমার দাড়ি দেখে তো আমি fascinated হয়ে গেছিলাম. So I বললাম, I must meet this gentleman, and, get some tips how to further grow mine, The practice might not grow as much as, but we can always look at the beard part. But anyways, coming back to our discussion, আমি কলকাতায় আমার জন্ম হয়েছিল, মাইকতলা ছেলে, আর মাইকতলা বাজার যেটা বলে, মাইকতলা বাজারের অনেক কাছেই আমরা থাকি। মা বাবা এখনো ওইখানেই থাকেন। অ্যান্ড একটা ছোট ভাই আছে, ও আবার প্রায় স্কুলিং করার পর এখানে ব্যাঙ্গালোর চলে এসছে। So yeah, that's where I am from.
So two brothers, born in Maniktola, grew up in Maniktola. You're a Maniktola boy. From the gullies of Maniktola, your parents are still there. You have a younger brother. Both of you have eventually landed up in Bangalore.
Yes,
Is he also from a creative profession?
indeed, he is. He's a product designer and a UI UX designer from Srishti School of Design.
You finished there and then you did your architecture.
Yes.
You went to BIT.
BIT, Bangalore Institute of Technology, here in KR Road. I came to Bangalore in 99 and I had absolutely no idea what I would be doing. I was pretty sure that I am not going to do any engineering, courses. And as you know, being a Bengali, in Calcutta, it's like every Bengali knows what they want to do. Okay, all the kids, they're born, I think, with the agendas clear in their mind.
Their destiny is already known.
Already. So
Unlike us.
everybody, I actually studied in a very small school. It was like a hole in a wall. And I would love to, in fact, mention the name because I'm deeply indebted to the school and the all the amazing teachers I had over there. So the school is called Ram Narayan Singh Memorial High School. Nobody knows, or not many people know. Sorry, I'm diverting a bit. I'm actually going further back. My surname used to be Gupta.
Right.
Okay, so I used to be Pramod Gupta till I did my architecture graduation till then. And then suddenly just occurred to me that why am I not using my actual surname, which is Jaiswall. So I just went and did all the necessary paperwork and, got back to my, I would say, the real original, my surname and everything. So this has been a big search for me, an identity for myself. We're from a very humble, modest, lower middle class family. Okay. I grew up in a joint family to the age of, I think, 10 years. And after that, of course, usually what happens in joint families, and then we separated and everything. So education was kind of luxury in that family. It was more like, just go to school, just study. Okay. After that, anyways, you'll have to get into the business or whatever your, parents are doing, family business. But then my mom, again, is a very strong lady, I would say. I give a lot of credit to her for the person who I am today. She's one of those lady, who didn't understand much about things, but still, she said that, everybody in my area, goli, what we say, right? Pada. আমাদের পাড়ায় সব সব বাচ্চারা যাচ্ছে আর.এন. সিং মেমোরিয়াল স্কুলে, আমিও পাঠাবো. I'll also send my son
to the same school.
Because everybody's son is going, right, in our community or whatever. And I was not given admission only because my surname was Jaiswall. And Jaiswalls were somehow known notoriously, let's say, we didn't have a very good name in education, in the matter of education. So principal said, no, I won't allow Jaiswalls. I don't know. I mean, that's the story my mom at least told me. She said, okay, fine. And my mom's side, they used to use Gupta as their surname. So she decided, theek hai, Jaiswal nahi chalega, let it be Gupta.
Kar do.
Yeah, and Gupta is a universal title. I think I've seen that even in Andhra, in Tamil Nadu, everywhere you see Gupta.
So you're a Bengali Gupta, not a
No, I'm a UP Gupta.
You're a UP Gupta.
I'm a UP Gupta.
Right.
So we are. So are we.
You're connected there also.
My bhai.
Not just Bengali, you're connected to the Banya community.
Kahin pe connection hai.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that's when my mom decided that, let it be Gupta then, and then I got the admission suddenly.
Right.
And that's how it had been till I graduated. And then finally I decided, no, I don't want to hide my identity. I don't want to be ashamed of being a Jaiswall, So our community, unfortunately, has been back foot for quite some time, right? So, but now things are changing. A lot of kids have come out, they are studying, and I always feel very happy to see that happening. So we had been in touch with, a lot of the teachers. And so Mrs. Tarafdar, she encouraged me. And, I came here for admission. I got the admission, Those days it was common entrance test, right? So we had to write the test. And I remember I'm going into this big hall and I have to select the seat, right? So I'm like looking at this big screen. What do I choose? What do I choose? And my father is like next to me getting tensed. Like all the, computer science and telecommunication, electronics, everything is getting filled in all the good colleges. What are we going to do? I said, I have no idea. And it just so happened that I entered the hall and I saw architecture. And I think I decided that maybe that's what I want to do.
So till this point, you had not decided that you want to get into architecture.
No.
No creative background, no building construction related, apart from
Absolutely
sheet metal.
Yes,
Um,
but interestingly, my father used to be very good in sketching.
Okay.
So he used to help me in, my school assignments and all, where he would sketch and I would.
Biology records.
Oh yes, biology, history, geography, everything. And I used to love, highlighting everything I would do. Put little those chunki, decorate the files and all that. I used to love doing it. And I, in fact, learned today, if you ask any, students of architecture to sharpen their pencil,
they won't know.
and I learned it from my father using a blade.
Yeah.
Not just the cutter or something, blade, the razor blade, right? So he used to show me how to cut, keep turning the pencil and,
how much of the lead, how much of the wood.
And how you just sharpen the lead, and I learned from him. So I think somewhere that creative kida came from him. And then, of course, I used to enjoy drawing and all that was there. So somewhere, I think, believe it or not, when I was there in that CT cell, I saw that architecture, civil engineering, I wasn't somehow connected to, but architecture, I knew a little bit that, okay, it is something to do with buildings and all, right? But as a profession, what it is, I had no clue. So I opted for it. I got it in some, in Gulbarga, some college from the first round. Pujadura Papa College, I still remember. And then I said, let me just go back home. I'll discuss with people, figure it out, and then see next round, either I'll take, something else, or maybe I'll opt out. I spoke to my chemistry teacher, Mrs. Taradar, and she said, oh, Bangalore is a lovely place. It's growing. Architecture is really a lovely profession as well. That was the first time I heard the word profession. So it's a lovely profession. And my son, as you know, he's doing town planning. So I started connecting dots. Somewhere, things were shaping up in me. And then I also happened to consult some of my Bengali friends, they know everything. So I asked this friend of mine.
Way below the belt.
No, it's a fact. It's a fact. Okay. But like I said, they have figured out they have to go to some good engineering college, a good medical college, do something in life and earn their name and fame. But for me, it was like I just wanted to escape, in some way, escape from Calcutta. That was also another reason I wanted to desperately come out of Bangalore. Come out of Calcutta and Bangalore was the destination, and interestingly, it so happened that, I think it's all destiny probably. In St. Joseph's, the form, of CET form went past by, I think, some 3 or 4 of my classmates. And then it came to me. And I just happened to ask my mother that very hesitatingly, that shall I ask, and I said, there is this exam I want to appear for and I have to go to Bangalore for that. And, this is what I want to do. Until then, they were of the opinion ki 12th pass kar liya hai, and now, Scottish Church is right around the corner. Do your probably, BSc or something like that, you just do it and, probably from there you figure it out. And I remember my mom said, very cliched, dialogue she gave. Beta, bolte, पैर उतना ही फैलाओ जितना बड़ा चादर हो.
Right.
So that was like, we cannot afford to send you for your higher education and all. We don't have money. And seriously, they didn't have any money. But then I got very upset and I all hell broke loose. And then, I kind of stormed out of my house. And she, of course, felt bad. She went and discussed again with all her Bengali friends. She has a big friend circle,
And they also need everything.
So, yeah, of course. So, আমার দাদার ছেলে ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং করছে ব্যাঙ্গালোরে। আমি তার দ্বারা কথা করে দিচ্ছি, তোমরা, he'll give you everything, all the inputs, right? So she made me talk to, this Dada's Chele, and I spoke also, and, got a little bit of, sort of a booster, confidence, and, and my mother also felt like, okay, probably we should consider. My dad also spoke to his friend circle. He didn't have any Bengali friends.
Fortunately.
Yes. So he spoke in his circle, and everybody said, नहीं, अगर बेटा पढ़ना चाहता है तो उसको भेजो, बिल्कुल, मतलब कैसे भेजेंगे, वो सब हो जाएगा, So they also took that jump. I said, okay, chalo, let's do it, So I just came, wrote the exam, and then consulted with a few people, and then finally second round I got in. I had an option to join BMS and BIT, and I opted for BIT. And the rest is history.
So I think your destiny came along with you. So starting from there to now being an award-winning architect, I mean, I was just going through your website, and every year on year, consistently, the firm has been winning awards for projects. So that's a great thing. So I think destiny wanted you to be an architect, in spite of because generally we have heard cases like in my case also. I had decided architecture at a very young age. By the time I was in 8th, 9th standard, I decided, okay, I'll take up architecture because dad wanted me to do it. Plus, I had some sort of a creative inclination. I was good with sketching and all of that. So I was like, theek hai, kyun nahi? Because everybody would say, it's good you get into something to do with arts or creative field. So then I said, theek hai, decide kar liya. So, but even then, till the day you walk into college, you don't know what architecture is going to be. Or even when you walk out of college, after the whole graduation, you still don't know what life has for you. So you've come a long way. You probably are in the right place when it comes to doing justice to the profession. But we definitely love to know your journey till here. So till schooling, till you got into architecture, we got to know from you. Now, how was your college life? Now, since you decided to do architecture is 5 years, and it's very different from what everybody else around you does. They are all busy. I mean, in their own engineering life is very different from the architecture student life. So how was that like? Did you ever have second thoughts of changing back to some other profession, or how was that those 5 years? What was it like?
It was very exciting time, I would say. I think a lot of what I became is also my life in that 5 years in architecture in BIT, and more so I would say 5 years or 4 years in hostel really made me what I am again as an individual. Of course, there were many challenges. Those days ragging was quite
Normal.
Normal, and every evening you have to do something or other, right? Somebody is getting beaten up, somebody is getting ragged, somebody is getting running around to get stuff from KR Market or go book movie tickets for the seniors, a whole bunch of things. But with me, somehow the seniors were a bit soft. I was like wondering why. So like, अरे यार क्यों वाला है, इसकी तो ऐसी लगी रहती है, छोड़ दो यार, ये तो ऐसी शीट्स बना कर मर जाएगा, इसको और क्या मारेंगे हम लोग, जाने दो, leave it. So that's how it used to be. Of course, I also used to make, one civil engineer student was there, my seniors, and he used to get me to make some drawings, bridge drawings and all that. So we used to, of course, try and escape many times, but not all the time it was possible. What I really enjoyed in my hostel was, it taught me how to sustain and survive, right? You have no money, you're getting really rubbish food, right? And then I don't remember how much I used to get per month. I think some 500 rupees or something like that, probably, to kind of take care of my expenses. I've seen how my mom used to deal with people, right? So she'll make friends anywhere she goes. And that's something which happens to me naturally. So even in the mess workers also, I would just be so friendly with them. And otherwise they'll treat you like, nobody, right? They are the kings over there. But I used to have very good rapport with them. And, so they'll come and give me extra anda, extra chicken, whatever those days, right? So, and I figure out that all it takes is, just a bit of affection, and you just have to talk to them nicely, respect.
Totally agree.
Give them
with you.
respect. They will do anything for you, But then all the freedom I got also helped me in grounding in myself in some ways. I remember how the last year they ran out of money. They didn't have money to pay the college fee and the mess fee and all. So we were contemplating what to do. I even suggested my mother, it's okay. I'll probably by then we had figured out that you can take your drop. It's common in architecture. So I said, it's okay. I can take a drop. Probably I'll join somewhere, work somewhere. And then once you have money ready in a year, maybe I'll again complete it. But of course, they said, no, let's see how do we figure it out. So they had a small piece of land in Calcutta, in Lake Town, that side area, Baguyhati.
Baguyhati.
Yes. So those days it was like marshy land. There was nothing. So they said, okay, fine, let's sell it. So I think they sold for a very petty amount of money, which just got over in buying a computer for me because it was thesis time, and they paid the fee, and that's about it. I joined architect Girdhar's office. I worked there and trying to figure out how to do my thesis and everything. Next 6 months of, I think 4 to 5 months I worked there, and then completed my internship and, did my thesis as well. And next semester I finished.
So he was also teaching you in your college?
No, he didn't teach me in the college, but I was discussing my thesis and all with him. And he kind of is one of the school, the old school thinking where you have to first figure out everything in plan.
Yes.
You cannot,
Wing it.
Yeah, you can't just come with some ideas and then, so first figure it out, what it's going to be, and then, proceed to the next step. He'll never let you jump. I didn't take any break. I just graduated, started applying, and I applied first a few places, and I got selected in Matthew and Ghosh Architects, as a matter of fact. I went back and I was asked by one of my relative,
what's
did
your
you get your
sense?
job or something? What is the plan? I said, yeah, I just got a job in a very good firm, and like, so what's the salary? I was like, I didn't want to say 4,500. I said 5,000. Like, what? वो like वो मेरा neighbor का बेटा है, वो Infosys वाला पढ़ाई कर रहा है. He doesn't know what is again, Infosys वाला पढ़ाई. So Infosys वाला पढ़ाई कर रहा है, उसको he's getting like some 20,000 rupees or 25,000 rupees per
that
month.
was the starting.
And yeah, that's when it all started, right? So I like, yeah, well, here I am. But then, so that of course started bothering my parents as well. Ki, where is this heading and how are you going to sustain? Now that, and the moment I finished my graduation, I stopped even taking any help, monetary help from my parents. So I had to sustain somehow.
In today's context, how important is it to you and the firm making models at the age of AI?
See, there's a connection between your hand, your eyes, and your mind. I strongly believe that. I'm a very tactile kind of person. I need to feel, the texture of the surfaces, and that's what comes out in our project also. So even in terms of when we make model, it kind of helps me to gauge, because when you're seeing in a computer, yes, you can turn things model around, but you're not getting a sense of scale because
Yeah.
you're constantly moving things. Right?
Scales, proportions, because you can move in, move out.
So you're zooming in, zooming out, and you lose sort of a complete picture of.
Yeah, the whole perception changes instantly.
Wherein I have a model, I'm picking it up, I'm seeing, and I can understand the proportion with respect to a particular element in my building. So it's very important, and like I said, it's a very meditative process. Last a few months ago, we had one student from Pesit. When I saw him working, I enjoyed thoroughly. I mean, he reminded me of my, college days where I would very carefully cut each and every slice, and we have a model right up there. You should see the workmanship. It gives you so much of joy, So that's why I said that in college, I used to take a lot of pride in the work I was doing. Whether it's drawing or model, I'll take my time, but I love to do it neatly. So that's kind of has got imbibed in our practice as well. Even in college, when I go to teach, I encourage students. I said, see, model making is something you don't understand that it's not just an assignment. It teaches you to be patient. And patience is very important in a profession like architecture. At a professional level, I'm talking about. It takes a lot to build a practice. And for that, you have to have good amount of patience. And more than the knowledge of how to, make model, what happens is it teaches us, every fold, what are the, let's say, junction issues, how do you kind of decide on
the detailings develop from there, the proportions develop from there.
So you'll be able to learn a lot.
Yeah, if you have a wall where you need to make some fenestrations, windows and openings, if you made it too big, you can see. If you made it too small, you can see.
Yeah.
So that design development also happens a lot at that stage. So unlike just trying to think over everything and then do.
Yes.
So that definitely is a change that you see today.
So that is definitely. So AI is a good tool. I'm sure it'll help. And probably replace a lot of the mechanism and the methods what is being used right now. But I still feel, these kind of things, sketching, model making, they will still have its relevance. No matter how advanced AI is becoming, because end of the day, like I said again, it's a tool.
Yeah.
End of the day, it's a tool. I would use AI or I would use SketchUp, everything as a tool. You cannot help them use them to help you visualize your design.
Right.
So that's something a misconception which most people should get out of.
You took up architecture. I won't say at the spur of the moment. Something made you take it, and then when you went back to Calcutta, after you did maybe 1-2 years of architectural education, did you see the city in a different way?
Oh yes, definitely. Very, very nice question, because I keep reflecting on that. So after a few years, of course, of architecture, when I went back to Calcutta, I started understanding, questioning also, that why are these in those old apartment buildings what we have in Calcutta, or the houses, the Lal Badis, a lot of these buildings are there, right? Done during the, I would say, the British era. And they're all like, hovering over the footpath. So the verandas and all, right? So we have a wide verandas and you can pass by. And that gave me an idea of scale again in a city level, right? I didn't know why did they do it. But then later on I understood that, it helps in taking shelter. The West Bengal, when it rains also in monsoon and all, and it's a lovely gesture that there are these covered walkways, verandas and all. So there's so much meaning to it. And I started seeing the city with a different lens then. I'm sure Baashobe will, kind of agree with me is that the culture, your city fabric also is a reflection of your, let's say how people live
Yeah.
and their lifestyle, the culture. So in Bengal, it's what we call rog. Rog is like a katte, what we call here, right? So people love to chit chat, right? So whether it's early morning, they'll take their tea, sit there on the rog. They'll just step out of their house and sit there on the rog.
Like a chabutra.
Chabutra, So that, suddenly I started noticing those aspects of architecture, which was there for me, just existing, but I never knew why. Maybe it was done for a reason, but I was never conscious about it. But suddenly now I was conscious about these things. That why was this done? And I started noticing, simple aspects of like why all the windows in Calcutta are these kind of a louvered windows, And interestingly, though we get good, we used to get at least and still get good monsoon, and there's no chhajja there, There's largely these what do you call movable louvered windows. So I didn't know why it was being provided, but suddenly I understood when I started studying climatology and all that why it allows good ventilation. You just leave a little bit in the open position at an angle, and it allows good ventilation. It prevents your rainwater coming inside, and it's all made of I would say teak, I think.
Yeah, teak.
In those days,
Back
teak,
then, yeah. What got you to this space?
Okay. So my first job was at Matthew & Go Shakaris, but then I moved to 100 Hands. I still didn't have a clarity in terms of what is that I am really touched by. I mean, I used to observe a lot of things. Those days, of course, internet was not really that prominent, right? There's no Google to check out millions of architects.
No Pinterest.
No Pinterest, right? So the only mode of exposure to international architects and their work was through the magazines what used to come in Bijoy's office, and the books what he used to keep. Right? So that was the kind of exposure. But I used to, go through some of those works and all. And of course, Bijoy had always been a person who would talk a lot about, let's say, the international or national architects who have been doing good work. So that's how we used to get to hear about other works and all. But then still, I wasn't very clear what is the direction that, let's say deep down, I would wish to pursue. But more importantly, my, I worked for 6.5 years in 100 Hands.
Right.
Yeah. So that formed the foundation from whatever we are doing, let's say today. And it was those first few years gave me some kind of a direction and a different perspective towards architecture. That's when I understood to perceive architecture not just in terms of a built form, right? It is more than that. We started acknowledging spaces. That okay, it's also to do with spaces. Yes, we all create spaces, of course, but unfortunately, architecture, even today, by general mass, is perceived as, more visual object.
By and large,
Also luxury. Also luxury.
Yeah. It's looked at it as a sort of a luxury to have an architect design your house. Or when we started our practice, we asked ourselves, what exactly should be our focus on? What should our direction be? And during those conversations, me and Divya asked ourselves first, what is architecture for us? And then while having one of those conversation, we both felt that, or we both said that it's a conversation, right? It's a dialogue between spaces and between material, between, spaces, material, people, so we started becoming more conscious about these things. And that's how even the name also came up, Between Spaces. So we started looking at architecture from beyond its geometry. It was more about the spatial experiences. What became more important for us. Now, once we create that experience, and it's a dialogue again from inside out, outside in. We just go back and forth as well. So once we create that dialogue, it was all about then expressing the built form, the built environment in a certain way. And there are many approaches. There are many lovely practices around. They have their own different approaches. But then we strongly felt that, we didn't want to practice architecture where it was all about just this, making a loud gesture. That was not the intent ever. And that has never been our intent. And I'm hoping that whatever work we are doing, it doesn't reflect that attitude towards architecture. So it was this sort of a conversation we started having with each other, and we did a couple of smaller projects, after we started our practice BetweenSpaces in 2010. I was still working with Bijoy because I didn't have the guts to, take a plunge and say, hey, let's start. Because and Divya had just got married, and she was like, I don't want to again go back and start. So she said, I want to start on my own. I said, okay, you start. And then I said, I cannot take a jump right now, so maybe I'll be able to help you from outside. I did that for a year, but then I felt that it's time now to take the big decision.
So 2 years you were together in 100 Hands?
Yeah, 3 years. 3 years.
So how did, I mean, before you guys, was it your decision to go solo or start off on your own?
Having worked for 7 years in the industry after graduation, there was a point when I was working with Bijoy where I felt that, I was good at resolving things. So if Bijoy would give me a sketch, right, I'll make sense out of it. I could resolve it. I could detail it out. I needed no more guidance in that sense, right? I could understand, and take the work forward. But then somewhere deep down, one thing kept bothering me was, if a project comes to me, would I be able to conceptualize it on my own without any help?
The way Bijoy does it.
Yeah. Any architect for that matter, when they, conceptualize. And of course, I have seen how Bijoy used to conceptualize the design and all. But then I had not got that opportunity. Right? So I was that man to go, like, when this concept is ready, give it to this guy, he will figure it out. And I did that. And I enjoyed it also. So I knew that I can do it, but I wanted to come out of my comfort zone. And that's when I think this seed of, starting your own kind of came to us. Divya got married, and then, she didn't want to start, or she didn't want to join another firm again. Hence, she said that I thinking of starting on my own. And by then we developed a very good rapport with each other, very good understanding again. We worked on a couple of projects in Bijoy's office where it was like a teamwork. So we developed this kind of an understanding that where we didn't have to speak to kind of convey what we are looking at getting things done, right? So whatever work I would do at certain level, and then I'd pass it on to Divya, and she will, kind of take it to the ultimate final stage.
So you're talking about being content and learning a lot with Bijoy. I'm assuming from whatever you spoke about Bijoy that he was a good boss.
He was.
Right.
He's a very good person. I mean, a very good mentor.
He's a great mentor also.
Yeah, he's a very good mentor and like a family, I would say,
Mm.
you know.
So if there was contentment, there were things that you were learning. The only thing that you identified as you probably wanted to do over and above what you were already doing alongside at 100 hands, alongside, let's say, for the lack of a better term, reporting manager, like Bijoy, is being able to conceptualize a product or conceptualize something all by yourself.
Right.
Are you saying that if 100 hands allowed you that, you would not start on your own?
I'm not sure actually, but I would definitely would have stayed a little more longer till I would have felt that maybe that entrepreneurship kida is there or not. But I guess somewhere I had this sort of an thing in me that I want to do it. You know? Like I said again, that for me it was also about creating your identity as someone. What better way is to then starting on your own and kind of taking let's say your work to another stage, right? Otherwise you're nobody. You're just another, probably an employee working somewhere. But then I wanted to go beyond that. I like I said, I come from a background where we are nobody in a way, but that always had bothered me also at a personal level. Between Spaces is in a way my own search for my identity. As much as I wanted to understand architecture, dig deeper into architecture, what architecture really means to me. There was a point where I wanted to, find out answers of certain questions which was there in my mind.
I kind of connect the dots this way, You were a Jaiswall, forced to be a Gupta to take a step forward, then reclaiming Jaiswall back.
Yes.
So if today, 10 years down the line, you wanted something which allowed you to have an identity, I completely understand that. No, I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but in my head, that's how the dots connect. What is interesting is, while you say that there was a very real context of getting fulfillment out of what you were doing, you come from humble beginnings. Your parents really went far to be able to, it was for them also a leap of faith,
Yes.
apart from all the other aspects that was there. I see a dichotomy here. To start off on your own, even if deep down the need is identity, but you also come from a place which is not abundant in some sense, which tends to make people risk averse. So you see, it's two opposing forces in some sense. मुझे अपना identity चाहिए, लेकिन मेरे पास risk appetite नहीं है. It's a conflict zone in some sense.
I actually have another,
Please.
version of that. I would rather say that I didn't have anything to lose.
That's an interesting way of putting it. It offsets the idea of risk, right?
Because, you would worry about losing something when you have anything. And yes, it was a big risk. In fact, my wife, who I dated for an year, I had told her that, this is something I would want to do. But I'm not sure when. Probably, let's say when we get married, do you think, will it be possible for you to take care of the expenses while I, kind of try to figure out if, I have it in me to become an entrepreneur in a way. I use word entrepreneur only because I've realized that starting a practice is not just about, it's not as poetic as it.
No, it is the reality. I mean, it is an entrepreneurship in its own way.
It is.
I'll get to that.
Yeah. So I had this conversation. She said, how long do you think it'll take you? I said, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years, probably. I have no idea, It took longer than that, of course. And it was a lot of the family support, I had to rely on during those 4 years of my struggle a lot. So big credit goes to her for, let's say where I am again today.
She's not an architect, I'm
She's
assuming.
not an architect. She's an intellectual property rights lawyer. So
Right. One of my closest friends is an intellectual property rights lawyer.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that later. Going back again, while you're working with 100 Hands and alongside Bijoy, and from a work point of view, there was fulfillment. You were getting to do things that you wanted to do, or apart from the fact that there was no project that you were conceptualizing. There's as Rajesh said, there was being on your own is every architect is an entrepreneur. What about the experience of being in 100 Hands equipped you to tell yourself that, hey, enterprise to hai. I'll tell you where I'm coming from as well. A lot of us in creative fields, when we are working, we figure out work, we figure out projects, we figure out designs, we learn how to face clients, we learn how to push a project through. We even learn pitching.
Right.
But when you start off on your own, right, in some sense, everything to do with running the show becomes yours.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's completely different
It's
from
a different
being in
ball
a
game.
right? And there's no bridge except for a leap of faith is what I hear most often than not.
Yeah.
Right? So I wanted to know if working alongside somebody wherein, you're speaking about that experience wherein you learned a lot and there was considerable amount of fulfillment.
Yeah.
And even if you've identified one component that you may have wanted, it would only extend your time. That's your personal thing. Where did you learn the aspects of enterprise?
Yeah.
Did any of that learning come into use later on, or you had to start figuring it out from the day you started off on your own?
At 100 Hands, I learned design. Okay. I learned how to be grounded. Okay. In the sense, when I had joined 100 Hands, I think I was all over the place. While through those interactions with Vijay, I figured out how to control your thinking. Right?
That's also
How
because
to
you were,
streamline.
when you joined him, you were just 1 year out of college.
Exactly.
So,
So it took me. In fact, after 1 year itself, he put me on a very large project. For that time, of course, it was a 50-bedded hotel.
7 hotel.
7 hotel. That was my first architecture project outside college. So I had no idea how to, make proper working drawings also for a project of that scale. Residences and all, small residences is understood, but suddenly you are, put on a project of that scale where you talk about services. It's a very service intensive project, right? There's fire you have to take care of. There's, STP, WTP, and I had never heard of such words. In college, it's just a part of your curriculum, but how does it work? I had no clue. But when it came to the entrepreneurial skills, where how to, let's say draw a contract also, I didn't know. Or how to pitch an idea to a client. I had no idea about all those things. We started from, let's say, literally ground zero. So it was and truth be told, just to take an example of contract, when we started our firm, we had some, I think, probably 12 pages, or not even 12 pages, some 4 or 5 pages of contract. As and when we learned the tricks, it became 12 pages. And today, I think it is 20 pages,
Right.
So we figured out that a lot of those things, what we are, let's say, missing from the document, which kind of leaves us a lot of ambiguity, lack of clarity in a client's mind. So we kept adding, and now people say, it's so overwhelming to see. I said, well, I'm not to be blamed. It's client who kept asking me so many questions, and I keep putting things to make it clear for you. So everything is there. You shouldn't have any doubt, should not assume anything.
Right.
That's a bigger problem in a profession. In our profession, when clients certain times assume, oh, I thought this is your scope. Or, oh, I thought this is how much time or money it would cost. Don't assume. It's all there.
The non-communication becomes a big problem.
Communication is a big issue.
Yeah.
And what I appreciate that he's talking about this point, because contracts is the last thing that, especially to a creative professional, comes in mind. उसको अपना design खतरनाक बनाने में इतना
Yes.
Time jata
No,
hai.
I agree on that. And the point is that it's the most boring part of,
Sure, sure.
because you don't want to sit and look at your contract and, papers and, how have you worded it out, everything.
Mm,
You would rather focus on design. You would rather focus on that creative juices, which is started flowing already,
yeah.
even before you've signed the document.
Yeah,
Right? Because
yeah.
I've seen the site and suddenly a lot of these ideas are churning out in my head.
Yes.
So instead of focusing on those points, and I am like looking at all the million points which I need to explain to the client and make them understand. It takes a lot of your time
Yeah.
and energy.
Yeah. And it also, to a large extent, feels I'm giving too much to something that is not as important.
Yeah. But unfortunately, I would say, I think we are at a time where one has to, especially the creative individuals, and I talk for creative professionals, irrespective of which domain they are from,
Sure.
you have to safeguard your interests.
Yeah.
You have to safeguard your ideas, because people are, there are, I don't say everybody is out there to, kind of, let's say, take your creative ideas without paying the right remunerations. But there are always conflicts which comes up only because probably there's a lack of understanding, or let's say things have not been communicated properly. So it kind of leaves the designer in a spot where there's a good chance you're losing everything. We have had several instances where we have lost our hard work done over, let's say, a year or two. It just suddenly disappears, and we fall in a trap that we lose control of our work. So that has happened.
And it's quite the norm. And in fact, I'll pin this aspect in our conversation, that for any creative profession, however boring and however unimportant a contract seems, the contract is the only thing that frames what we are going to do, how we are going to function within it, what are the limitations, and the framework of commitment between two institutions, the client as an institution and you as a service provider.
Absolutely.
That is the only way to framework it.
Absolutely.
And the growing conversation on that is important. Are you saying, going back to 100 hands days, this understanding of contract started happening then, and you just took that learning forward and continued to apply it when you started off on your own?
No, I had no idea about how to draw a contract.
Right.
There also it was the same state.
Yeah. उस समय जरूरी भी नहीं था.
No,
I mean,
that's what it was like. I remember it was just signed on a regular piece of paper. Today we put it on a stamp paper, to make it more legit. And I would also think it this way, that today a lot of clients, they also respect that, because then there is some amount of trust also is developed, that okay, this guy is serious about it, about his work.
Yeah.
And that is very important. There has to be that kind of respect for the time and effort that is being put in a work by any creative individual. And a lot of the clients, they appreciate the clarity in fact, a lot of my clients, they've said, Pramod, your document is so detailed, and it's it is of course long and takes a lot of time, but everything is so clear. So there is no ambiguity, and we keep adding to it, as and when we learn from our mistakes. Oh, acha, this particular client probably they assumed that this will be a part of our scope. I'll give one small example. One of our project where the client assumed that soil testing is required for structure, and since structure is in our scope, soil testing is also
cost of that is also in
our scope. I said, no, I need the soil testing done by you. I mean, you have to pay for it. I will facilitate. I'll find the person to do it, get the soil test done, and then I will use that information. I'll give it to my structural engineer. Okay, that's not something I am benefiting out of it, right? So why should I pay for it?
Right.
So this, then we started putting that particular clause also, that soil testing has to be done by the client, and we will facilitate it. So a lot of these points we started clarifying more and more in detail. But
Yeah.
more importantly, I think, like you said, that a contract keeps things very clear about the roles and responsibilities,
Hmm.
and the limitations also.
Hmm.
That this is not in my scope, in my domain.
Hmm.
So do not expect something of that sort from me.
Hmm.
And the client then becomes clear that this is not something he'll be doing or she'll be doing. So that clarity is very important to give.
I have a few things to
Yes,
add
please.
in continuation with what you said. So there is also this general perception, and that perception is also created because of the history of things that have happened, like say Council of Architecture. They've given set guidelines on ethics of an architect, practice of an architecture, but they've never looked at it as a business of design or business of creativity or business of architecture. At the end of it, it is all business.
Yes.
We are all here to run, and we have discussed this multiple times. Business of design or creativity is a business.
It's a business.
We all need to make money. We are not here to do charity. Fine, there might be pro bono projects which we decide to take up, but that's on us. It should be on us. Yes, definition of ethics in a profession need to be defined.
Yes.
That definitely has to be there. But in all of this, the absence of business in this whole thing, it was always a practice of architecture or architectural practice.
Yeah.
It's never business of architecture.
Correct.
But in today's time, it has to be business of architecture.
It has to be.
And
Unfortunately, my reading is always that, unfortunately, Council of Architecture has not really, updated itself, with time. I mean, I'm seeing the same set of clauses, same, points in those documents. Even, I think very recently they have updated their website and they've added a lot of few things. But then when you open those documents, it's the same thing what was there earlier. So, and it doesn't talk in detail at all, So that's the unfortunate part. And you cannot safeguard your interest as a designer, as a businessman with those set of points.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's always being told that you have to follow these ethics. But what about on the other side?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, the fact that there are two institutions coming together and there is a give and take.
Yeah,
it's a transaction at the end of the day. Right? And that framework is always very fluid. And I also feel that, we've had a couple of conversations on this saying that we culturally also find it difficult to quantify service.
Exactly. I was going to come to that point.
Right? Like, is table ka cost hai.
There's a value to what you can see and touch and feel.
But not to the design of it.
Because that's just your, what do you call, a very intangible thing, right?
Yeah, but
it's an idea.
I think all of us, most of us do not even relate that the fact that this is a table, it's not about just having a flat surface.
Absolutely.
It's about everything that
Ergonomics
goes
of it.
around it. Size. Now, if I need something here, if I'm a designer, I need so many things around. If it's designed for a specific purpose, there's so much more that needs to be looked at.
Yes.
Like everything that we do in design has a reason.
So,
and how that reason comes out aesthetically is what we are here for.
So one important point, what we always mention whenever we are asked, about between spaces, and I stress on a point that, whatever projects we do, it has to have a certain purpose, right? Our design ideas also. When I say purpose, doesn't mean that it's only functionality. Don't look at the lens of just function. There is, we strongly believe, Divya and I, we strongly believe that, architecture is, as much as it's about the built, it's also about the unbuilt.
Yes.
And the spaces within this built environment or outside of it has a deeper impact on the human psyche. I can relate to an example where recently we finished one house, and my client, she said that, Pramod, I used to love cooking. And she works in Adobe, right? Both husband, wife. She said, I used to love cooking, but, it becomes so stressful. And living in the apartments earlier where we used to live, I really, never enjoyed cooking there then. But ever since I moved to this house, just standing in my kitchen and looking through that corner window outside into this landscape, it just gives me so much of joy and it calms me down so much. I sit and cook also. I enjoy cooking, and I mean, I don't feel stressed out at all. So that proves the point that spaces have such, sort of a deep impact on a human being in their life. It kind of impacts them for good or for bad also. So I think people need to look at architecture from beyond this lens of that it's just an object, right? Beyond the skin of it.
Yeah, I think that would apply to almost everything that's creative, right? If you look at curios, for example, as a category of products, uska kya functionality matlab, but it fancied you when you bought it.
Yes.
And it's there and it gives you, it makes you feel something. You may not be even able to articulate it most often than not, but you desired it and wanted to own one of that, and you've kept it there.
Right.
Also, things that you buy for your work desk, you don't keep it in your bedroom.
Yes.
What you buy for your bedroom, you don't keep it on your study. These are associations all within you.
Yes.
As you said, I think I think that expression is beautiful. Architecture is as much about the unbuilt as it is for the built component of it in some sense, which spans through both unbuilt and built. But yeah, I see this, your statement being relevant to anything that is creative.
Absolutely.
That there is as much unseen as there is to seen.
Yes.
There is as much quantified entity is probably just a component of the overall creative process to bring it together.
I have a few points to inquire around the practice. Before we get to that, I want to just go back to the time when you started thinking of starting Between Spaces. Firstly, when you spend so much time in one firm, why the need to move out and start on your own? Is it an issue with the way architectural practices are designed, or not even designed, but the limitation of the individual who is running an architecture firm? Or because why can't the architecture firm also grow with, say, somebody as like you, if you're in a firm and you're adding value to the firm and you've been there, you've added good 5, 6, 7 years there, and the firm sees your value being there, why not become what you became in Between Spaces as part of the previous firm itself?
Yeah, it's a very good
Can
question.
I add to that question in some way?
Mm.
And this is for you as well. I'm also inquiring into your question in some sense. When I was asking him about why he moved out, he did not speak about discontentment or anything that was, typical. Paise nahi badhte hain. I did not have a growth path. All of these are the typical issues. He did not comment on any of that. He categorically said, "Yaar, in all those years of good camaraderie with my reporting manager or boss, this is a component I want. I mean, I wanted to experience what it felt like to handle something on my own.
Why not do it as being part of that firm?"
Hold. One is that. The second thing is, he also had a personal aspect to it, which is the need for identity. So if that need exists, don't you also feel that agar wo need exists karta hai, that conversation about can you continue as a part of somebody probably cannot happen, no?
Why not? Because then even there you get
वो तो 100 hands है, उसका तो identity है.
Yeah, but then the identity is of the firm, not of...
So, a lot of the firms now, abroad especially.
Right.
Yeah, because that's there. It's
I've worked,
relevant. It's quite relevant.
Did you understand my question?
Yeah, I understood the question.
Perfect.
I think both your questions are very relevant and very important as practitioners like us, So I would like to also add another point to why, let's say, I chose to move out is I think somewhere I also wanted to inquire the world beyond what I'm seeing in 100 Hands, right? And ask myself that, is this the language, let's say, or is this the direction, I'm completely satisfied with? Or is there anything, there's nothing wrong in what was happening there.
Sure.
But I wanted to check and find out whether there's some another world beyond this. But I know that I will not take a very drastic turn from from whatever I learned in the last 6.5, 7 years of my career, right? So that inquiry also made me ask myself that what is the other way to do it. So again, it ties back to the question, whether I can conceptualize something on my own or not. So it becomes important, and that comes from does a particular, let's say, workspace, an enterprise, does it really facilitate or provide a a suitable condition where you have that liberty of bringing your expression? As a practice, we are 15-year-old now, and we are also asking ourselves the same question. Yesterday only we had to see off one of our colleague, and he is one of the best we have had so far. I have also had a good fortune to work briefly while I was in 100 Hands with Allies and Morrison Architects, a very big firm. They probably have like around 300 plus strength, right? When we were working on some of these projects, I used to interact with one of their senior architects called Alfredo Caraballo. And he was a project architect when I had met. But in a few years, I got to know that he's become director. And a few years later, I got to know that he's become the partner. And the two founding partners, that is one of the founding partners, now he's retired and he's just probably in the governing body or whatever, but he's not in the forefront right now. So I think that sort of I think, it's all about the mindset about probably. It's about the culture, what you need to develop and what you believe in. At BetweenSpaces, when what happens is when we in India, when we start, I don't know about others. I can probably talk about from my own experience and my own firm, that when you start something, you've spent a good amount of time in finding a certain trajectory, a direction, and how you want to pursue your work. And it's very important that your team who's there with you, they see the merit in the way you are functioning, right? So there's one aspect, of course, the commercial part of it, where if an individual is feeling that commercially he or she has been taken care of or not. The other part is, of course, in terms of the growth in the let's say in the professional aspect, where there is a freedom and the space is conducive enough for me to grow there, where I am allowed to express or bring my own ideas. But of course, when you have practiced for so long in a certain way, you would want things to work under certain parameters, right? Not to say that we are scared of exploring, but it's just that we need to hold on to the grassroots ideas with which we started our practice. And if there is some sort of a synergy between the two, I think it's always nice to have people continue working with you and grow with you.
Why is something like that not prevalent? I mean, why is it not so common here in Indian context? I mean, I know that there are not too many large firms here. There are more smaller practices. But I think we definitely need, if we are going to get into the business of design, business of architecture, this structure needs to start falling in place.
So that's an important point. There has to be a structure. There has to be a system. And that system, unfortunately, is not there.
Yeah.
If there is some sort of a structure where that, these are the layers with which you have to work, and you reach at a point where you are given the next stage. Now, I think we need to come out probably of this idea of practice, because we all like to use this term studio and a boutique practice. There's also, I think, somewhere there's a fear. I mean, I'm talking about myself again, that I fear of growth beyond a point where I would see that we've lost control on the projects, on the quality of the projects, on the language, what is being produced of the projects. What's I don't know. I mean, these guys, they have probably figured out, like Allies and Morrison, the projects, what comes out of their office, and there are different partners, there are different people. There's more or less, that it's their product, right?
Yeah.
There is a sort of a, I would say, continuation of the work what was started by the original founding partners and what is being produced. There is some variation coming out also. I can see that now, but it's not bad. It's good variation, So I think that space needs to be created so that the project also grows, and we as founders probably also come out of our comfort zone. Where we know that there is, like, I stepped out to find out, whether there's a world beyond what I've seen. And I think as a practitioner, I need to keep pushing myself to see that there's a world beyond what I've been doing probably now.
Let's say 100 as chal raha hai, sab kuch chal raha hai, you also want your identity, you also want to do a full project, all of that. But still, and you figured it out by now, experienced it, been there for 4-5 years. Agar wo jagah mein aap tik nahi sakte, if that wasn't a place that wasn't giving you anything,
Right,
you would not last that long.
absolutely.
You turn your back and walk out.
Yeah.
So let's, for all practical purposes, say that there was a good reason why you stayed there for so long.
Yes.
Hypothetical aspect is, let's say, what could an institution, what could they have done for two things? One, for you to stay back for good.
Yes.
And not get into enterprise altogether. And also fulfill your desire of having something which is synonymous to you. Because identity is being synonymous.
That and the financial desires.
Sure.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I'll let me just answer it this way, that a lot of the youngsters today, let's say, they want to start immediately after working 2 or 3 years of working in any firm or organization. Somewhere probably there is this sort of a idea that, by doing by freelancing or by starting on their own, they might get a certain X amount of money, which is coming directly to them. It might work as long as you are freelancer, right? But the moment when you want to set up a firm, a studio, where you need to take care of a lot of other things also, right? Pay your bills, rents, pay the salaries, everything. Then you don't have the luxury of, having, let's say, all the revenues what you're generating coming to you alone. So it's not an easy life. Okay. I think probably a lot of people might figure out going forward, or if they have the vision to, let's say, grow in a bigger firm, then I'm sure they will also, work on their system. You have to create an environment. Firstly, I think it starts from grooming up an individual, right? I'm very happy that, as much as I feel bad that people leave us, right, after 3 years, but all of them who have left, they've not left to jump from our office to another office. They've probably just jumped, or rather they've left here to start on their own. So so that's one thing I don't feel bad about, that at least, they're not going out of some sort of a reason, which has got to do anything with our system, right? So I think for an organization to, let's say, have people continue, working with them, we need to create an environment which will not just allow them to grow financially, but also find their own voices within the organization. See, identity, when I started BetweenSpaces with Divya to find an identity for myself also.
Right.
But beyond, after a point, it becomes more about your work. It becomes more. Today, I don't think about my own identity. I think more about what is my architecture going to be like, right? What am I contributing? What is my mission, probably? So I'm asking the bigger questions. When you start a practice, when you're young, you have a lot of questions. You're trying to figure things out. But as you grow older in your practice, I think we have to make that space for the next generation, for the younger generations to uh, join the band and then take it forward from there. That's very important. Otherwise, what happens is, either you'll be producing all kinds of work, and it'll be all over the place, or you will be a control freak where you won't allow others to uh, add on to your vision. I think grooming is more important, I would say. If you're able to groom someone and they really have that synergy with you, they're seeing that, okay, this is the place where I can, explore. But within that, there has to be certain parameters, of course, so that the practice doesn't lose its authenticity, I would say, its vision, the original vision, what we started with. Once it's there, I think, things should work.
Since you're mentioning this point, how important is it for an architectural or a design firm to have a philosophy around which the design should be evolved? Is there a need for that? Is it important? Because if you're saying that the identity of the firm should not be lost or diluted, what governs that identity of that firm?
So the reason why Divya and I, we decided to keep name of our firm in a way that it doesn't talk about us as such, and it's very ambiguous in a way, which has, I would say, not ambiguous, which defines more of what our firm would be about, our practice would be about, right? And not so much about us. We might be the face and all, but then I always make sure, in fact, I feel very uncomfortable in filling my name, because there is so much which has gone into the project, which is more than just my contribution, right? The contributions of my architects who worked, my colleagues who worked on these projects. The interns who have also been part of it, they have also contributed to many projects, very nicely. So it's a collective thing, right? So I think when it's about, like, BetweenSpaces has won something, or BetweenSpaces has come in the forefront, I'm more than happy. I don't want my name or Divya's name to come in front, and take the limelight away from,
So how important is that philosophical part of it? I mean, basically the identity of the firm, of any design firm, is the nature of work that you do, or the kind of work that you do. Now, is the work governed by a particular philosophy? Because if it's not, then you're doing anything and everything.
Exactly.
So if
I think you've answered the question.
But if the philosophy is there, then why would there be a dilution in the identity, whether it is being done by Pramod, or whether it's being done by XYZ, whether it's being done in a Bangalore office, or whether it's being done in a Calcutta office, or anywhere?
I kind of want to piggyback on that question. We're talking about two different things. Philosophy would typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, philosophy will lend to the creation of culture.
Yeah.
Identity is quite quantifiable. Of course, there is an intangible to that as well. But identity is primarily very visual, very, very, very quantifiable, very physical in some sense.
Yeah.
Very touch, feel, hear. All five senses can articulate that. So there are two different things, no? In some sense, if philosophy gives you the culture, you and I work together because we are culturally very similar. मतलब philosophy अपना सही यही है, and but करते अलग अलग चीजें हैं, and we do it our own way as well. right? And even if I have been up to some mischief, I will still come and tell you, Rajesh, I've been up to some mischief. This is what I did. Because at the level of core life philosophy, we relate quite a bit. But we're very, very different people.
So,
Right.
so when these identities are there is a philosophy behind each of these. Now, maybe 100 hands and between spaces might have a similar set of spatial identity or interconnection, but there is a between space very clear. This anybody who looks at a project done by between spaces can probably identify that this is a between spaces. Or even if we go back a generation earlier, B.V. Doshi, Mr. Patel, Hiren Patel, or Mr. Girdhar, they all had a certain specific way in which they designed buildings.
Right.
So the philosophy of design and their identity was more or less interlinked.
Yeah.
Unlike Gensler. Now, a Gensler project, you will never know it's a Gensler project.
Yeah, it's
or even the Allies and Morrison project that you mentioned.
Yes.
And Fox and Fowl,
Right.
Con Pedersen Fox and KPH and all of these. So that's one set of architects who have an identity as a name, but not an identity as a design philosophy. And then there is another set of architects that we mentioned who have a design philosophy and an individual philosophy identity which are interlinked.
Right.
Because then it's very clear that the former, where there is an identity of a firm and not a philosophy driven type of work, they become a larger business house. Like in Indian context, DSP.
Yes.
DSP is a large business, architectural business house versus a between spaces, let's say. There is a lot of difference. Now that's a set established business structure that they have. And between spaces is a practice that is there where the philosophy of the firm drives the design and that identifies the firm.
Okay.
So how do you see, what do you see this whole thing as, and what's your take on that? I think that's a reality that is there.
It is a fact. I would say if, a design philosophy is important for sure because it comes through your own inquiry into the work you're doing. So, for example, when we designed this particular building, where Divya lives in the ground floor and the first floor of this building, and second and third floor is our studio. So we were asking ourselves continuously, what should be our response? How do we really work it out? There is, of course, a certain complexity which is there because it's a house below and then we need a studio. So how do you really, spatially plan it? But then as an expression, as a core belief, what exactly, we need to project it out. We have to work with many kind of limitations as well. This is our project where design per se, we didn't have much limitation, but there was budget limitation. So, in terms of expression of this project, there was nobody to question us. In fact, Divya's parents, they encouraged us, right? We, in fact, piggy banked on them. They wanted to move from their house, which is in Vijayanagar, and they wanted to move closer because Divya's in-law stays in Koramangala. So we said, this is a nice opportunity. Let's, kind of build our own office also. That phase when we were designing this building, we were going through our own personal turmoil in life. And somewhere we asked ourselves, how do we approach this? And I think both of us reached to a conclusion that we need to cut all the noises out of this building. We need to remove everything that is a visual noise. Can we have a building as simple as it's possible to do? So it was more about removing the excesses from this building, and that in somehow has stayed with us even today. So we kind of removed unnecessary projections and unnecessary balconies or fenestrations. We simplified, and we felt that we needed a certain sense of calmness. When we come to our space, workspace at least, We wanted to feel that we are in sort of a different zone, which makes us more reflective in our life. So again, that state became a part of our philosophy. Let's say if there is no philosophy, there is no direction to your practice, it'll become more like a let's say a manufacturing unit, right? Where raw materials come, we just package it in a certain way and then just let it out.
His example of Gensler,
Mm-hmm.
which is that big in architectural firm.
Number one in the world in terms
Yeah.
of revenue and
Revenue, yeah.
maybe not size, but in terms of
Revenue
revenue
for sure.
generation for sure.
But is Gensler the kind of organization that you fear being, which is manufacturing unit?
Yes,
Yeah.
somewhat I would say. I not somewhat. I'm afraid I know to go in that direction.
Should I conclude that when you're talking about a large organization, in the context that we were speaking about earlier, कि भैया अगर एक अच्छा बंदा है, wouldn't, theoretically speaking, wouldn't him being in my organization or I being in another person's organization where I'm finding fulfillment of all the parameters that I'm looking for as an independent individual, are you saying that in some sense it takes us towards a direction where we eventually compromise identity and it is more like a service providing manufacturing workshop?
Yes, I agree with you.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I definitely wouldn't want, let's say, our practice to go and be labeled only as just a service provider. Like architecture, you say architecture, get a design done by an architect. As a practice, we like to believe that we are adding a lot more value to what we design, more than and beyond, let's say, the object what you see. It's a sensorial experience.
Architecture is as much unbuilt.
It's as much about as much as
Built.
it's about built,
As much as it's about
unbuilt also.
This same flavor of conversation
Yes,
that you're having.
So when you have that kind of belief system, you wouldn't want to just mass produce something. You'd always want to work with an agenda of, let's say, creating something which is more meaningful, more purposeful, right? And with which people who will be inhabiting those spaces, they can really connect with it. They can really be themselves. When we always try to work with architecture and spaces where it just works in the background. Okay, it doesn't come in the forefront and just shouts for attention. That look at me kind of gesture is not there.
Let's say I'm a client, a potential client.
Okay.
I have two options. I like both the work. I like the work of 100 Hands and I like
You're putting me in a tough spot.
I was going to say the same thing.
So I like 100 Hands work and I like BetweenSpaces work as well. And to the layman, they both look similar, right? What will you say should my prerequisite be for which you would say that, sir, it's better you go to 100 Hands? And where will you say that, no, I'm a better person to do it? Where is that line?
I don't want to sound politically correct here, but fact of the matter is that 100 Hands has given, shaped, or rather provided a foundation for our practice, right? Both Bijoy and Suni. I think it's a lot to do with an individual, what direction or which architect they want to choose. If I were to say that, how have I, let's say, have I taken a different trajectory from what I learned at 100 Hands? I would say yes. As much as the firm has given me a foundation to work on, I never inquired or asked questions about what should be or what is the right approach or what is the right answer. In BetweenSpaces, in our own studio, we are looking to create an some sort of a sensorial experience in all our projects. We like to tell stories through our work. We take a lot of our cues from our conversation with our clients. To give you an example, we designed St. Joseph's College of Law. And when we were approached by the father, or rather when we met them, the father who I worked with, Father Anthony, he said, Pramod, Catholic institutions are like, has this pediments. He didn't use the word, but I figured out. He just gestured, and arches. I said, Father, I'm not sure about pediments for sure because I believe that is not the time we are living in. So I definitely cannot give you that. But arches is something which let me think about and work on it. So we went back to the campus, roamed around, studied some of their existing building, and there's an old heritage building still intact over there. I tried to understand why is he insisting that, and I could relate to it later. After my walkthrough in the campus, is that sense of nostalgia that comes with these buildings. And that comes because of the scale. There's a certain sense of scale. There's a certain sense of rigor in that building, right? So we started taking cues from these buildings. And what we finally designed, it's an amalgamation of the structure, which is primarily set a very strong direction for that project, wherein structure governs how the entire system works over there. It's a very interesting structural system called Virendale, which is used in bridge constructions and all, right? We use that, and then again we had to kind of fuse it with our clients, let's say in a way the baggage which he's carrying, the stories what he's grown up with. So we started weaving both of them together, and that's how the building came up. There was one fear of what we had was that we didn't want a very identifiable character which is very vivid and very prominent, that this is Between Spaces building. We've never worked on that way, that this has to be our gesture. There are many architects and architecture firm who are doing lovely work, and it's very clear. You see and you can identify. We hear from our client their stories, where they come from, right? And we see, what are those materials probably, which will fit into that narrative, which will fit into the budget as well. So it's a marriage of both tangibles and intangibles. It can't be just one of it, So that's how we have always inquired in our project.
Do you see architectural practice as a medium of generating wealth?
See,
or
there are
any
practices.
creative field for that matter.
There are practices, and I'm sure they are quite successful, and especially
I'm applauding him for framing the question like,
yeah. No, there are practices, and especially I would say interior design practices. I think they are quite successful. Some of them,
But success and creating wealth are two different things.
So creating
Success
wealth for
even between
themselves, or
spaces
creating wealth for let's say for the organization, or
it's you as an individual who's there in the core, like whether it's you, Pramod, as the founder, or whether it is an XYZ who works in the firm. Everybody needs to generate wealth. And at the end of it, that's what we are here for. Because if we're doing a business, then we need to generate wealth. And if we have taken a step to move away and break away from an existing organization to start on our own, it's obviously to generate more wealth. Not just the practice side of it, but obviously to generate some wealth as well. Does it help you generate wealth? Doing the work that you do?
At the moment, I'm struggling with it.
Okay.
As much as I would want to, and that's the ultimate goal. And I don't live where there's a constant battle and struggle. I struggle with the thought that on one hand, we need to generate revenue, we need to earn wealth, and I would love to see everybody in the organization grow with us financially as well as professionally. Unfortunately, in India, the architecture service is still not being given the due respect and let's say importance it should be given. I would say 9 out of 10 people are thinking like that. Give me a good looking design. For them it's ultimately the look. It should be, unfortunately, it should be more like Instagrammable or good enough to pin it in Pinterest. People should say wow to it, but they don't understand that there's more to it, right? I know that what let's say I'm quoting the fee my profession charges is much lesser than what I deserve to be paid. But unfortunately, because of let's say undercutting everywhere, we are not able to move forward. There's always this comparison. Oh, this practice is doing so much. We got so tired and exhausted listening to this. We finally took a decision that this is the fee where I would want to stay.
Yeah.
At this point of my career, I know I deserve more. I'm not getting there, but this is where I want to stay, and I don't want to compromise on that. I would say 9 out of 10 clients, they don't show up because they are comparing us with somebody who's charging lesser than us. And I tell them that why don't you compare us with people who are charging more than us?
Yeah.
So I think it's about positioning yourself also. And at some point in your career, you need to take that stand.
When I was just deciding to do architecture, and when I got into architecture, my mentor and the person with whom I interned with even before I went to college, he said, read the book Fountainhead. It will change you in only 2 ways. You will either fall in love with the profession or you will hate the profession. Fortunately or unfortunately, it made me love the profession to the point of that too from a perspective of Howard Rock, not even from the other 2 characters who are there. When that happens, and architecture by itself, there are 2 sides of it. There is the side of being an architect, and there is a side of the other side of not being an architect. Do you struggle with the perception changes that happen? Because as an architect, there are your own struggles, which is to do with your identity, your work, the philosophy, all of that.
Right.
And then there is the other side of it, of the parents, of the life partner, of children, of friends and family, where they look at, say, you have 20 years experience, you should have done A, B, C, D in your life.
Right. Benchmarks.
Yeah. And because they are seeing so many other people do these, they expect you also to be there in that thing. But as an architect, I mean, maybe it's not I think it's an architectural thing that being on this side, there are a few things that you have in your head and how the life has to be led. But how do you see these effects happening? Or is there anything like that actually?
See, truth be told, financial component bothers everybody. You need a certain sense of financial security in life, right? And my partner, of course, my life partner, she was very supportive of me, those first 3-4 years. But then it also brings a lot of insecurities eventually. That where is it heading? And like I said, after 4 years, I was questioning myself that, am I really cut for this? I'm not able to get one good project, right? Where I know that I have potential, but I'm not able to get it. I don't have connection. I came from, let's say, I'm in a city which I made it a home for myself right now, but I have absolutely no background here. I have no support system. So everything what we build today, it is all through sheer hard work and through this constant sort of, that willpower that you have to just keep going. There are phases, those low and high tides are there always, right? And I reached a stage where I have accepted that no matter how big a practice I become, these low tides and high tides will always be there. In some quantum, it will be there. Just keep your focus on what's important to you. And I think, we have any, home, and I'll be lying if I say that, let's say the financial struggle I went through was absolutely acceptable and fine by everyone. No, because 2015 we had a baby, and my wife is like, okay, what are you doing now, right? Because we have a baby now, and we need to think about his education, his diapers, everything is coming in on your head, right?
Sometimes I look at liability and responsibility as two sides of the same coin.
It is. So but then, like I said, I was a bit of a rebel always, and I said, well, I cannot think of anything else. I have to make this work. There is that threshold, right, where you need to reach or cross that threshold, and then you feel that, okay, I have, done something which has been recognized, and it has been appreciated, and probably I will see this getting monetized soon. And with this project, that recognition came to us, and then after that, another project, just like you said. So that started giving some confidence also to everyone in the family, not just my wife. My parents also have been always wondering, what are you doing? My mom keeps telling me, after 15 years also, I'm seeing you, getting upset with all these issues. I thought by now everybody will be like listening to you. I said, it doesn't work like that. So, end of the day, we deal with human beings, and human beings are complex.
I'm going back to a point that you're talking about, that at some point you need to take that stand. Yeah, 10 साल से practice कर रहे हैं, 15 साल से practice कर रहे हैं. इस cost के नीचे काम नहीं करेंगे, because it leads to frustration. And all of these, by the way, are hard-earned decisions as well, because you would have been frustrated for the first 7 years to be able to come to
Oh yes, of course.
to say that, यार ये वाला project उठाना ही नहीं है.
Right.
The whole thing is every little thing that you are even applying as a learning is hard-earned. किसी ने आर्किटेक्चर स्कूल में नहीं पढ़ाया था.
Exactly.
आपका जॉब एक्सपीरियंस में नहीं था. This is only when you jump into the water yourself and you're figuring it out. It so seems, at least to somebody like me, that there is no short circuit to this process.
No way.
Right? And I'm hearing the same thing from you. It's like, I have been through this. I'm going through this. I have more to go through this. And there's yet another man whose work I love, who I thought is successful, but has the same complications and narrative in some sense. One of the things out of that was this whole aspect about how you decided not to go cheaper, which is taking a stand for what you are worth. You still don't feel that stand is even close to what you are worth. Absolutely. In your head.
Yeah.
That's belief, self-belief.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, but when you also came out of an organization, institution, whatever, how did you go about getting your first client? Right? Yeah. Because what was in practice and what people saw of your work was you being a component of somebody else's, you being a cog in somebody else's gear system.
Right.
And you broke out and said that mera apna gear hoega.
Right.
Bas akele chalenga main pehle.
Right.
Correct. This is what you said.
Yes.
How did you manage that? Was cost one of the hooks, or was it only credibility? Because what you were illustrating then is work that somebody else, this identity was.
Right.
Identity was.
Yes. So when we started on our own, first of all, like I said, that I was still working in 100 hands while Divya had started. And I was like, maybe I'll, support you from behind. Whatever drawings needs to be done after office hours, I'll go back home. I'll help you with that, but client meeting, discussion, you need to take care of it. So we did the first one or two smaller references, and it was a small office for some aviation, not aviation. I mean, it was like these two ladies who was running a small office to book tickets and stuff like that.
Right.
So that reference came from Divya's father, one of his clients' requirement, and small office. So we did that, and when you are out there, people know that, these guys are fresh out. They can be exploited also. So there were many people who walked into our office and through references also, and said, yeah, we want to do this, and we made schematics and all with all our energies, and gave our best, but they disappear again, right? So all this happened in the beginning, and I'm sure still might be happening. Then, of course, when I took the plunge, then a lot of the references came from Bijoy also. Like he didn't want to take a certain job, so he said, if you would want to, I would, So we took a few jobs like that, and through references, otherwise also, from various points it came, and we started pitching. Of course, we had no clue where to position ourselves. So we used to ask in the industry, who, like my peers or somebody who's senior but yet close to me, and ask them, how much should I charge? What should I charge? Of course, they were always, oh, this is too much, and they will negotiate. Negotiation is always there, but after a few years of our practice, we took a conscious decision that we will not put a figure which will be negotiable, because it sends a wrong signal to clients that, oh, there is a scope of negotiation. They always hike up and then they will bring it down. We are not in let's say product industry where you go to a sofa vendor, they'll
True.
say 40% discount, but people don't understand that the 40% discount they are not giving from their own pocket.
Yeah.
They have that margin. They have reduced. They have kind
It's
of
factored in.
Escalate the price, and then they're giving you 40% on that, and then it comes down to whatever they want. Now, I don't want to quote, let's say, 2,000 rupees and then come down to like 500 rupees like that, right? So that sends the wrong signal. So we had to take a decision, say, this is the price we work, and we will not come down. And a lot of people, they appreciated that and they accepted also. A lot of people, they felt we are too stubborn, and we don't want to come down on those figures. So it didn't work out.
No, I see good camaraderie there. I see a very progressive relationship
Yeah.
for him to pass on projects.
Yes.
Which
Well,
also
that's what a good mentor does.
Yeah. And somebody who's also very secure. If you're insecure, you're not going to be doing this.
Absolutely. And I do the same thing with people who have left my office. I have passed on projects which I'm not keen to take. I pass it on to them. Up to them whether they want to take it or not.
What is the difference between when you started and now? Apart from the awards, I'm not touching that. He'll probably want to talk about those.
I think the awards are already mentioned all over.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you Google him and there's awards that come in. So, which is why I think I'm not even
that
brushing
it's all
past
too
that.
exaggerated.
No, I mean, it's world acknowledging your efforts in some sense, whichever way. But you started off at some place.
Right.
There was a lot of self-belief. There was support coming in. Some worked, some did not work. And while in the course of this conversation, we spoke about how certain things, the ups and lows, are going to be there. In some sense, will it be okay for me to conclude that when you started, and today here, 15 years down the line, you are more steady or stable in comparison to when you started?
So, I'll tell you something. Divya and I, we, have been very conservative in the way we run our studio. When I say conservative means, we've been very, very careful as to what we draw in terms of our own remunerations. Though we are partners, we just take salaries. So, and we always try to keep at least a buffer of, let's say 5 to 6 months salary for everyone, so that we don't struggle at any point of time. Are we steady? We were steady that time also, and we are steady now also, only because we have been very careful in the way we have approached the commercial part of our practice. Okay, even if we have lean period for 5 to 6 months, we should be able to sustain. So that's part of a small structure which we have always followed. In terms of struggle, we still have the same struggle. What I had then, I still have now. The only difference is that time we were struggling to get smaller projects also. Now we are struggling to get let's say, better or bigger projects.
Projects of desire.
Of certain caliber,
Yeah.
because we as a practice also know that we can do more, unless and until you have a certain, let's say, size of project in your kitty. Only then people will sort of consider you. Otherwise, they question your capabilities. But the thing is, I also tell them that, when I got my first house, I had never done a house before that. I built it successfully. When I got my first institution, I had never, had any institution or experience
Sorry,
of working on institutions.
Yeah.
But I built that. I never did a restaurant before I built that. So it's a journey,
The reason why I was laughing was when we were recording with Chelin Parker, he's a photographer. And you go to him for the ability of, his skill of taking good photos.
Yes.
But then their clients ask him, have you done a shoe photo? जूते का shoot किया है क्या? या फिर cup का shoot किया है क्या? So in the same manner, it's an architectural practice. You know how spaces are to be designed. Whether it is for a house, for an office, or for a large project like an airport, yes, there are a few technicalities here and there,
Technicalities will be
but
there.
those can always be learnt.
Yes.
But that does not mean that you cannot design a space.
So I was asked,
Yeah.
have you designed a hospital? I said, I'm very keen to do it. But I also know the fact that it's a very service intensive, architectural project. But at the same time, are you looking at my capabilities of delivering a project where all these services will be taken care well by me? I have the know-how of services. I know how AC works. I know how fire works. I know the basic anthropometries, everything how it should be. It's a matter of sitting with your panel of doctors and understanding your expectations. But what I'm going to add to this is a certain space which is not so clinical and cold. That is what my aim would be. It won't be just to create another, let's say, a matchbox with a series of rooms fulfilling all your, let's say, programmatic requirements. It has to go beyond that. How do we take the project beyond the functional, aspect of that project? I think that's where architects contribute.
Right.
So I think we will stop it here because of the time, and
Sure.
also, though we'd love to talk to you a lot more, there is a lot more that we wanted to even inquire. But I think for the time being, we'll stop it here. We'll probably see when we can come back again and discuss. But it has been great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the time. And thank you for being absolutely honest and open. It was a great conversation.
I think I was very unfiltered.
No,
That-
we appreciate that.
That's absolutely appreciated.
Yeah, I'm grateful for this conversation and your time and your earnestness to, actually dive into everything that we threw at you. It's not easy. We're not saying we're asking difficult questions. We're just being as honest with ourselves as we are being with you. And we appreciate all of that effort.
Yeah. So thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.